Welcome to episode 3 of the Forbidden Castle podcast. Today we're joined by guest Justin Holmes.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, sir.
He is Josh's brother here.
Yes.
Very knowledgeable man.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice guy.
I appreciate that.
Glad to have you here.
Put your mic a little closer.
How's this?
That'll do.
That'll work. That'll buff. So Russ, you're in college right now. You're on break, right?
Yeah, I just got on break, and honestly, it feels really good.
Yeah.
Because
How long are you on break for?
about a month.
Yeah. Holy crap.
A month?
We have like 14.
you.
How many days do we have? Like
11 days, I believe.
Yeah, 11.
Yeah.
Yeah. The college gets so much more days off. It's crazy.
And then you guys have spring break. What dates?
I don't know the exact dates, but that one's
like
only
somewhere in March, right?
Like a week.
Damn.
Yeah, like in March, I'm pretty sure.
So what are you like majoring in college? Like what are you going to college for?
I'm majoring in biochemistry, so yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah. What are you hoping to do with that? Like what's your?
As of now, I want to go into like drug design, stuff like that. But things could change. That's just kind of what I'm interested right now.
Yeah.
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 Fair enough. Like, I know you talked about, at least with me, that you want to go in, like, the pharmaceuticals at all? Do you want to do that, or like?
Yeah, so basically that's what drug design is. It would be like medicinal chemistry. Like, basically I would be developing or help developing and synthesizing new drugs for medical treatments and whatnot.
Oh, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Yeah.
Like, where would you do that at? Like.
That's the only thing. Like, I'd have to probably go to the cities. That's like the closest job area around here in Minnesota. Yeah. But
so you develop drugs. That's what you said. Like.
Yeah, that's what I plan on doing.
And then like what companies do that? Like what
like your Pfizer, your Eli Lilly, all that.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Then there's obviously smaller businesses and corporations that do it as well. But
yeah.
So do you kind of just, I don't know, do you like think of like a symptom you want to cure first, or a disease, like whatever?
Yeah, so you could go about it that way and then just kind of work backwards.
Yeah.
Honestly, nowadays there's so many online softwares that they use that a lot of it isn't, from my knowledge, a lot of it isn't as much as experimenting in the lab, but most of it is you just type in things on softwares and build molecules and whatnot on there, and then you can go from there. Yeah.
So it's almost like computer programming in a way.
In a way, yeah. Like there's actually a field of chemistry called computational chemistry where basically what you do is you develop like proteins and drug candidates through softwares, and
That's wild.
That's interesting. Yeah.
How about you guys? What do you guys plan on doing? Or kind of still unsure, or
For college and stuff like that.
just anything as a career after high school? You know.
I mean, I'm very interested in like lifting and like drugs and stuff like that. Like I like chemistry. My mic right now?
You can loosen this. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm interested in like lifting and stuff like that, and also I'm very interested in like biology and science fields, somewhere around that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't feel like much of a passion for college, I'd say, but I visited Mesabi, and that's like not a very good college, and like it was like just interesting seeing all the rooms and stuff. So like I feel like if I toured like a bigger college, I feel like I'd find something that I like.
Yeah, that's understandable.
What do you mean the rooms?
Like the classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more of like I feel like a personal experience in college, from what I understand. Like, it's less like
Broad.
whole high school as a group thing. It's just more you're doing your own thing.
Yeah, it's more personal
Going
also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird transition because a lot of the professors and stuff, they just don't care. Like, if you don't turn your work, you don't show up to class, they could care less. It's your journey.
That's why I hear it's kind of weird. Like in high school, they all say they're preparing you for college and whatnot, and it seems like it's a lot less strict in college.
Mm-hmm.
And like in the lines of like that, I don't know. It seems like professors are very lackadaisical when it comes to like rules and stuff like that. There's like, it's either you do it or not, you know.
Yeah, that's correct. I'd say the the preparation that they say that they're preparing you for is more so just like you put in at least probably double the hours outside of class than in class.
Yeah.
So like if you have an hour lecture, you're probably gonna have to study that material 2 hours outside of class, and that takes discipline. Mm-hmm. But the actual like work and stuff itself and like responsibilities like in class, they don't care.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. Like even with like elementary to high school transition, I've noticed that it's a lot different than I say it's gonna be. I'm sure it goes the same thing for college.
Yeah, exactly.
So, other than your, like the chemistry you're pursuing, stuff like that, what are you interested in?
Well, chemistry is probably like my number one passion as of now, but I tend to have changing passions all the time. But
yeah.
I've always been into like fitness and stuff like that, and that's honestly where my passion for like biology and chemistry started, was trying to figure out ways and to just absolutely optimize training, nutrition, supplementation, stuff like that. So I started making like plans and programs for people along that nature, and now here I am just doing something that I honestly didn't expect, but it's kind of cool.
And I know, like you said about making plans, stuff like that. Have you ever, has it ever crossed your mind to be like maybe a coach or like make plans for people for a living? I mean, obviously it's like...
Yeah, it's definitely crossed my mind, but I can't see myself doing that as a full-time job, I guess. I don't find it as fulfilling as some people do. So that's why I can't really see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in regards to like getting like the most enhancement or like most, what's the word for it? It's like most like bang for your buck for like lifting. I know you're on TRT. That's correct, right?
Yeah. So
can you explain what that is? And
yeah, so testosterone replacement therapy. Normally, in almost 90% or more of the cases, kids in my age would not need it, and but I got my levels tested, and they were just completely suboptimal. They were below 300, which some doctors might say that, oh, that's all right, because you're still within like a normal reference range, I believe. I'm not sure the exact values. It might be less than 300, maybe not, maybe even lower than that, and they will actually go and prescribe you testosterone. But mine were like a little bit under 300, and it just, I got prescribed 200 milligrams a week, which is, I mean, pretty good dose. Not gonna lie, like that's not a common prescription, but I don't know. I'm on a decent dose, and it's made a difference in my mood, my energy levels, my obviously lifting is just completely different ball game. Can't even compare it to natural training at all. It's made a big difference in my life. I have a higher libido. Like even in high school, all of my friends, I feel like they were out pursuing women and stuff like that, like things teenagers do. But I could care less. I just didn't care. And now that I think about it, that probably plays a factor. Do I know why that my test was so low? Not all the reasons, but I'm guessing a part of it was a genetic component as well as just stress and lack of sleep, probably, because I didn't get much sleep at all in high school. But
I think a lot of people don't realize is how much testosterone affects like a lot more than just like building muscle, like mood, like you said, and like libido. I mean, that's pretty obvious, I feel like, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into, like, if you have low testosterone, that affects your life like drastically. Like it's a big problem. Yeah. Like, even energy wise, like, and I know you talked about at least with me before, like how people with higher levels of testosterone find harder things more enjoyable or more pleasurable. Can you go into that?
Yeah, that's completely true. Just as like an evolutionary standpoint, we're talking about it in that sense. That it's the warrior hormone. It keeps you going. You know what I mean? Like it's designed to keep men going when times are tough. So if you have a higher level of testosterone, you're going to be able to go out and hunt and gather and do all that stuff that the men did back in the older ages, like Paleolithic era and all that stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think a lot of people realize that. Yeah, like I said.
That's my cock.
Yeah, it's a really interesting hormone. Definitely not something you want to be playing around with. Like, I honestly debated whether I should go on it or not, because it's you're literally manipulating your body chemistry. For a lifelong time. It's not like you see these fitness people going on small cycles here and there. It's like I could care less about that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm on it. I'm going to be on this for the rest of my life.
Yeah, because when you make that decision, I mean, like, I know, like, suppression when it comes to taking testosterone, if you get that testosterone exogenously, like you are, TRT, you're going to get that suppression, and then, I mean, you're going to be suppressed for the rest of your life. You're not going to be able to do... I mean, you can do, what's it called? Where PCT, post-psychotherapy, is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's correct. But all that's really doing is just prolonging the time till recovery. So, like...
So you can get back producing your own natural testosterone, but it's, like, uncommon, very hard. Is that right?
Yeah, you can recover, but it's almost never going to be to the same level that it was before. But for people that are prescribed TRT, that's not a concern, because if they tried to recover it, not only would they not be in an optimal range because of suppression, they also wouldn't be in optimal range because they weren't in optimal range when they started.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
That's, like, a big thing. Like, if you're ever going to get in PEDs that affect your testosterone, or, like, any hormone, like, if it's going to get suppressed, so you need to think about it. It's a lifelong decision you need to think about.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we started the podcast, you said you had some notes from, like, Jordan B. Peterson.
Yeah, I took some notes here and there just because that's another, like, one of my side passions when I'm not, like, studying or hanging out with friends or my girlfriend or stuff like that. I like watching a lot of his videos and reading his work sometimes. I have some stuff to talk about, I guess. What do you guys follow Jordan Peterson?
I'm a big fan of him.
Big fan, yeah.
I've never really, like, seen stuff. I've seen, like, clips of him, but, like, I've never really watched, like, anything. I've never just, like, searched up his name and tried watching stuff, but I, like, definitely would.
For me personally, I've read the summary of the 12 Rules for Life, which is a really good book. I want to get that from you, by the way, though. That hardcover, I need to read that.
Yeah.
But, I've watched a lot of them. He's a good guy. Yeah,
it's a hard read, but it's very, very rewarding because you learn a lot from that book.
Yeah, that dude's ability to, like, articulate thoughts into words is just crazy. Like,
yeah, he's clearly way smarter than every person that he's normally debating.
Yeah, that dude is just, like, outstanding. It's just crazy.
Yeah, actually, when he was in high school, he said that the first 1 or 2 days that he was assigned, because they were assigned books for the whole semester.
Yeah.
In high school for his English class, and the first 1 or 2 days, he was just done the class. He finished them all. He's like,
Oh my god!
The guy's really smart. Just by that mere fact right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. For Christmas, you got a book called Power, right?
The 48 Laws of Power, yeah. And from what I understand, it's just essentially, like, ways you can become more powerful. I guess it's pretty self-explanatory, I guess, but apparently it was banned in the prison system from fear of the inmates reading it and being able to manipulate the guards into letting him go.
Wow.
Wait, who's the author for that? It's not.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Not Jordan Peterson. No.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. It must be a powerful book, honestly. Like, no doubt.
Yeah.
But yet again, I mean, you never know, because that's basically, I'm not going to get too into it, but the government doesn't want us to have a lot of power when it comes. Yeah.
Not at all.
Oh yeah.
Even, like, I know you talked about before. I mean, if you're comfortable talking about this, like the FDA and stuff like that. Is my mic keep cutting out?
A little bit, yeah.
Loosen this one on the side.
Yeah, here's a prime example. Like, these are things that I just have to think about, considering the fact that I want to go into drug design and all that.
Yeah.
Like, for example, you guys ever heard of the supplement NAC, N-acetylcysteine?
I have not.
I have not, no.
Well, anyways, it's a supplement that basically helps like sequester, get rid of free radicals, which damage your liver and damage other organs. Well, it's such a potent like liver antioxidant, basically. I don't know why the government decided to do this, but they were afraid, from my knowledge, they didn't want it to be abused by addicts and drug users, because it is really effective at helping lowering free radicals, and it's a very potent antioxidant. They banned it. They banned the supplement, even though this is something that's meant to help people. It's meant to help people bring down inflammation and liver damage and all that, and they're like, no, we don't want this on the market anymore. It's effective. Yeah. Drug users could be using it to use it as a crutch to use more drugs, and it's like, well, maybe that's not the problem. Maybe, you know what I mean?
I know
it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
But they do a lot of good stuff too. I'm not gonna lie, but I gotta think about that type of stuff, considering like what I want to go into, and it's like, oof.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you wonder what else they're banning.
Exactly.
If they're banning something that is like that, I'm sure there's more stuff that, and there 100% is more stuff that would be very beneficial to people.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, like even if it comes like at least from what I heard, like just like for money wise, like a lot of stuff they get, certain drugs might like hurt the government. I don't know. A specific example. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So if I'm correct, you're
tilt his thing other way. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I'm correct, you're talking about like basically the influence on how drugs are created, like through funding and stuff like that. Is that what you mean?
I was talking about like more so like if they're like cancer treatment, if we're cancer treatment like would be like was successful and you could treat cancer, I mean like that's $1 million, like $1 billion industry, and why would they want to do that? They're losing all that money. It's like stuff like that, like of them regulating drugs in a certain way, or not having drugs be legal because it would be not beneficial for them money wise.
Yeah, that's totally correct. A prime example of this is I took a microbiology course in college, and what we were doing was we would isolate these microbes that had potential antibiotic candidates present in the soil, and this is a big problem. They're having colleges do this research because the pharmaceutical companies refuse to do it because there's no money in it. There's no money in antibiotics. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not something that is widely prescribed. It's only when someone gets an infection here and there. Where you have your SSRIs, like your antidepressants, your anxiety medication, your, like you said, like even cancer treatments that could potentially be big money. Antibiotics aren't. So they get no funds to do that research. You know what I mean?
Which is crazy.
So what did they resort to? They had these college programs and classes to do this research and then send it off to different institutions to finalize it, because no company would take that role because there's no money in antibiotics. It's a prime example of it, which is sad.
It's really sad.
It is sad because obviously we need antibiotics, especially in a day and age where there's tons of antibiotic resistance, because constantly they're just superbugs are getting created, but the FDA, not the FDA, the big pharma in general, just they could care less, because I'm sure they care to a certain extent, but it's not the top priority because it's not a moneymaker.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a corporate like company, your goal, sole reason is to be profitable and make money, and it's sad to see that. Like, it should be, I mean, obviously, I understand that, like, you want to make money, but it should be also more predicated on helping people. I mean, that's like optimal. It's not going to be like that though.
Yeah. Well, because there's big money, like you said, there's big money in antidepressants, like anti-anxiety medication. So if they did come along and they had a cure for those, I could see them not even attempting to research it and further it to get out to the public, because then they lose all the money that they're making on the antidepressants. And I think even one example of that, you know about psilocybin, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a psychedelic, correct?
It's a psychedelic compound found in mushrooms, magic mushrooms. And in studies, it was 4 times more effective than antidepressants in healing patients from depression and anxiety. But because of the Drug Act and like the anti-drug stuff, they just don't research it. So they have to pass it down to like low-level colleges and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's another big factor. Like, I'm glad you brought that up because I wasn't thinking of that. But then that's a prime example. But another example of that even is like kratom, for example. Kratom, it acts as an opioid / like caffeine. It can act as a stimulant or a sedative depending on the dose. And that drug is quite effective at reducing pain. But there's not a lot of research done on it because it's a potential threat to the higher addicting substances like Oxycontin and hydrocodone. And it sounds bad, but it's almost as if the government, like, if kratom was a healthier alternative, where would their money be going? They wouldn't be getting money from the more addictive substances. And it's sad, but that's a big factor. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's true. Because psilocybin, kratom, even marijuana, these remain illegal in some parts of the U.S. and they really shouldn't be, in my opinion.
Marijuana especially, I think. Because from all the research done, marijuana has far more benefits than negative side effects.
Well, at least I know. I remember you brought up a study once, so you sent it to Nick and Dylan, I think, about how was there a correlation between weed users and depression, or was it like brain capacity or something like that?
I think it was.
What was it?
Marijuana use in
teens, right?
Adolescents, yeah. It correlates to higher rates of depression later on in life.
Yep. That's
Did that have something to do with like memory too? Or like I think
Gray matter.
Gray matter, yeah. I was talking about gray matter. Can you talk about? I remember.
Yeah. So I'm not too familiar about the gray matter study, but I do know that in adolescent use, so basically if your brain isn't fully developed yet, which can honestly even be considered up to the age of 25, which is, But anyways, it's directly correlated at a high usage. I believe so, more of like a chronic high usage because that's
like consistent.
Yeah, exactly. It is directly correlated to like higher rates of depression, anxiety, and schizophrenia.
That's crazy. Like, do you know the percentages or the?
I don't know the exact percentages, but I do know that there is a
high.
Not I don't know if it's necessarily very high, but nevertheless, I mean, correlation is a correlation, and you don't want to. It's something that I wish that I was taught, like being younger.
Yeah.
They very well might have taught us that, and like even DARE, but that brings up a whole other topic, they're like they try to, it's almost as if they try to over scare kids, and that's not going to be effective. You have to, kids are smart. They're a lot smarter than sometimes adults make them out to be.
And very curious.
Exactly. And very curious. That's a very good point. And not only that, they have a way higher propensity to neuroplasticity. So their brain
can change.
Their neuroplasticity, their brain is plastic, so it can change easier than adults. So if they're consuming these drugs, which probably explains why there's a direct correlation between depression, anxiety, and schizophrenia, they're consuming these high dose drugs, either acutely or chronically, and they have a way higher propensity to develop changes in the brain, and for the most part, negative changes if it's continued use. So. Yeah.
I also just saw an article about how marijuana use, I think it may have been either in people over 45 or under 45, but probably over 45. They have higher rates of heart attacks when they use marijuana.
Yeah, I think I saw that same thing, but it was saying like weed users had a 1.3% chance of having a heart attack.
And then it was 0.8, I believe, with...
Isn't that...
None.
It's not that big of a deal. Like I saw
it's not, but at the same time, I think
like 0.7.
How many people use marijuana and how many people are over the age of 45? Like,
yeah, I guess
it can be a lot of people.
It just seems to me because I saw that article, and I was thinking, I was like, it kind of seems very minute.
It could definitely be changed the way that the company putting out the article wants.
Like the way the survey was done. That makes sense. I mean, yeah, but that's interesting because I feel like a lot of people. There's a lot of both sides, like weed and stuff like that, them pushing like negative stuff. But like I honestly don't hear very much negative stuff for weed. I very hear, at least for me, like actual like studies done.
Yeah, video of the like kids, like adolescents using it, where it like led to depression and stuff. I feel like that was like the first video I've seen where I've heard like bad stuff about it. Really, like,
Yeah, it seems like it's like there's negative stuff about it, like a negative stigma, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't ever hear negative like actual like statistics or like studies done. That's like one of the first.
Yeah, like there
heard.
haven't been studies provided.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's more of just like a big, either clearly Republican or clearly Democrat stance on it,
Yeah.
giving the news. So you're like, okay, this could be factual or it could not be based on how they're presenting it. You just really don't know.
Yeah, that's true. It's just a big political mess, really, and I mean, I'm sure we're all aware of like it's probably not gonna change anytime soon. Like the hope I'd like to see the war on drugs change soon, but in all reality, it's probably not. But yeah, it's just a big political mess that can't really do much about, I suppose.
Well, like, what would you propose? Like, what would be better for like the war on drugs? Like you said, like, because I know in Oregon, they what did they do in Oregon? What was it? They passed a
They basically decriminalized drugs.
So that means like you can use drugs. Like, does that mean like there's no law against using like say heroin?
I haven't done too much research into that, but I'd assume so. Yeah. I mean, when you hear the statement decriminalize drugs, it's kind of what you think of.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a good step?
It definitely can be, but I do believe that there obviously should be some regulations.
Yeah.
Predominantly among adolescents, because they don't know what they want yet. They don't know what they're doing yet.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
Most importantly, they have the most plastic brains, so they're the ones that are being most affected.
For sure.
Yeah.
So ideally, in a perfect world, I believe most drugs should just be regulated by age, like alcohol is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sure.
Because I feel like it somewhat should be up to your own decision, unless, like you said, that you're under of age, because there's a lot of other things that influence you, and you're still not fully developed. That can affect you negatively.
Exactly.
But like I know in Canada, is it like the same? I think it's like the same way. Like,
no, in Canada,
or is it stricter? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure on all the regulations in Canada, but one that stuck out to me is like heroin.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, heroin. You can use heroin. There's heroin clinics in Canada if you, like
God.
depression or whatnot. You can go to get a nice heroin infusion in a clinic.
Oh.
I mean, like the way at least I view it, I feel like there's too much just like negative stuff around drugs. Cause like obviously I don't think the people that are addicted to drugs want to be addicted to drugs. They want to get off, but like they just can't. And when you just like always are like very negative or like sour towards them, I feel like it's even worse. I feel like you'd be more supportive, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like decriminalizing is kind of a good step, at least in my opinion. I don't know enough about like statistics or studies and like how much like it actually helps, but I feel like it'd definitely be better than just being very negative towards drug users.
Yeah, people that are like addicted to drugs, I feel like they definitely like don't want that for themselves. Like obviously, like
for sure.
But especially when you're like adolescent too, like I feel like just stopping that would be very hard because, like you said, you get like routines faster. Would you say that when you're an adolescent?
You form routines faster?
Yeah. Or like addictions, like
like habits.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% you do. That's when most of them are formed.
Yeah.
And where's the like the cutoff for like when your brain stops developing? Because I remember like there's like a certain age where like
isn't it 25 when your brain stops?
Yeah.
Yeah, they say the plasticity part of the brain for the most part stops at 25, and that's when it becomes like really damn hard to change things drastically.
Would you say that would affect learning too, or do you think that's why they like cram all the learning into like 18 years of your like first 18 years of your life pretty much?
There's probably a multitude of factors of that, but I mean it certainly makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean also it's like you're younger, you need to learn before you do anything.
That's
you're not
true,
going to learn after you start.
Yeah.
You're not going to go in the workforce and then learn.
That's true.
No, but also like didn't mean to cut you off, but
good.
Like thinking of it like through like hormones too, like even in that sense, like you have higher levels of testosterone motivates you have higher levels of dopamine, you have higher levels of serotonin. Most likely all your rewarding and pursuing hormones are basically at higher levels at a young age than opposed to older age. So like just the prime environment to learn, move forward. I don't know.
Yeah, and in regards to the like after your brain developing at 25, would you say like I've heard some things about how like psychedelics or hallucinogens may like help like break habits. I've heard that a lot. Like it helps break addiction, stuff like that. Because I remember Joe Rogan was talking to someone and he said like it's like it's like a snow globe. You have like it's already like or like you're going sliding. You say you're sliding. You have your own path. It's hard to get out of that path. But like what taking psychedelics or doing hallucinogens is, it allows you to break the path and like it's like shakes up the snow globe.
I've heard about that.
Yeah.
So you were just talking about the effects of psychedelics on neuroplasticity, and explain the snow globe again.
So like when you have I'll use the snow globe analogy. I remember Joe Rogan was talking about it, and he said when you like you said, when you're over the age of 25, your habits and your routines get more like set in stone. You would say that, correct?
Yes.
So when it's like that, it's very hard to break those habits because you're not developing as much as you were. And pretty much when you take psychedelics or hallucinogens, you're basically shaking up your snow globe and allowing yourself to have a different path, like say, so you can form new habits or break addictions. Because I've noticed a lot of people talk about how they break their addictions using hallucinogens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
it's a very interesting topic for sure. I think to understand like why that happens, you first got to be aware of like when you're forming habits, basically you're using similar neuron circuits in your brain. So like the firing of neurons from one synapse to the other, just all the way throughout your brain, you're using the same ones when you're forming habits, right? So when that happens, they strengthen, those neuronal circuits strengthen. So you have a higher probability of using them again in the future because as an evolutionary standpoint, I mean, if you're still alive and you're using the same circuits, you want to keep using those circuits, stay alive. Yeah. I get it. So basically, to my knowledge, like the psychedelics provide an alternative neuronal circuit. And because if you think about LSD, for example, this isn't psilocybin, but this is just one that I'm more familiar with. It basically causes a lot of neuronal circuits and pathways to fire simultaneously, which is why you'll hear people say they see colors, and weird stuff like that. It's not possible without them. So like that's a prime example. It opens up new pathways in your brain that were not even possible without the drug.
Yeah, which is crazy. So I think a lot of people don't talk about. There's a very negative stigma towards psychedelics and recreational use of that. I mean, I've never tried a psychedelic. I mean, that freaks me out. I would never want to touch that personally, but I think it's kind of ignorant to ignore the fact there are positives of it. It's like, I know it's a lot of, this one thing, I know Joe Rogan talk about this again, but how like a lot of fighters use psilocybin to microdose it before, say a kickboxing match per se. And they would like, say like they would be able like to see like the opponent's strikes before they happened. Like they would see it happen before it did, and they like know how to block it and whatnot. Which is like crazy to think about. Have you heard about that?
I've heard of him talk about that as well.
Which is crazy. And you need to talk about these. Like there's very little light shed on like the positive effects of psychedelics, I feel like.
Well, there's very little research about it in general because I believe it was the early 70s maybe. They completely, because there's like Woodstock where they're using psychedelics. I'm pretty sure that was Woodstock. Like the whole hippie era.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
When they're consistently using psychedelics and they're just like running around like no care in the world, carefree. And then the government started looking into that and they were like, for some reason they just said, okay, we should ban this. And it was like another part of the war on drugs, I guess. And even the start of it. But since then it's been nearly impossible to study it. Because up until that point, LSD was very new because it's lab made. And the research is completely halted once it became a Schedule I drug.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it has to also do something with the fact about like funding again?
I was going to bring that up.
You think it has to do with that too also?
Why would they care to do research about it if they're not making money on it?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Which is a big mistake that they made back in, like you said, the hippie era time. They tried to make the war on drugs a big concern, and I don't remember who the president was at the time.
Reagan, maybe?
No.
Bush? I don't know the era. So.
Nixon.
Richard Nixon.
Big Watergate guy.
Actually stated, one of his famous quotes about the war on drugs was, he stated, did we know the war on drugs was false? Yes, but we basically pursued it anyways to criminalize minority groups. Like that's not his exact words, but you get the point. Like
Jesus,
I can actually pull up the quote if I can find it. It's just disturbing, and because of that war on drugs, now it's a Schedule I drug. So now they can't do research because there's no funding for Schedule I drugs because they're considered no medical. Schedule I drugs are considered to be drugs that have no medical purpose or no medical use.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I've noticed I know Psych Substance. He's a YouTuber. He talks about psychedelics. You guys know that.
Yep.
And he talked about how I think you talked about it with me once about how they would give patients that were dying in hospitals doses of LSD or something
so that they could cope with their death.
Yeah, and it would bring a lot more
clarity to it.
Clarity and efficacy than other drugs. Like, I don't know what drugs.
And it's like completely different realms of thinking for it, because instead of being like, wow, I'm going to die and I'm terrified to die, they just started, they were at peace with it.
Yeah.
That they were dying. And that is incredible thing for someone that's dying, I can imagine, is to not be afraid of dying anymore.
That's just crazy. Like, I think there's so many drugs out there, like, because government regulations and whatnot, and them being ignorant and making that stuff scheduled on drugs. Like, there could be a lot of efficacy and applicability of those things that could help a lot of people, I feel.
Yeah, and I think going back to profits, I think because one of the studies with psilocybin was that people that took it, they'd have one session where they take it, 1 or 2 sessions where they take it, and they'd never have to touch anything else for multiple months, I think even up to a year, where they're just healed of depression.
Yeah, that's very similar. Have you guys ever heard of ketamine?
Yes, there's ketamine
they have
clinics.
one of those in Duluth.
Yeah, Ketamine North.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Like you mentioned, it's a very once in a while type of thing. I mean, that's kind of a
like potent would kind of. It's like.
And ketamine's a hallucinogen or psychedelic, correct?
It's
horse tranquilizer. Yeah, technically, right?
It was first developed, I'm pretty sure, to be a horse tranquilizer, but it has hallucinogenic properties. That's why people say when they've gotten ketamine infusions in clinics, like I've watched people's experiences on YouTube, and they say it's weirder than heck going into a doctor's office basically, and they basically just tripping balls in a doctor's office, and then it's considered a medical treatment. It's kind of,
and that's good.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised actually that's a thing.
Yeah.
I wonder legally how that works.
Yeah. Well, yet again, it goes back to funding. Depression is an insanely high concern and prevalent ailments in the modern day. So
yeah.
Obviously,
and big pharma's probably looking at that as big dollar signs.
Yeah.
Because if you can take 1 dose of psilocybin, how much money do you lose compared to taking an antidepressant every single day? Mm-hmm. They're losing billions of dollars, where they don't want to do that from a business standpoint, but from an ethical standpoint, that's just terrible.
Yeah, but are you gonna mention how it's ketamine's only done once in a while?
No, I was gonna say, do you think those ketamine clinics are government funded or they're private? What is it funded to? Is it because you know how most clinics, they're just government ran, correct?
Yeah, I think for the most part.
Would that
I'm
be
not 100% sure on that?
Would that be a private clinic? Was that even legal? I don't know.
It's most likely a private, but they still have to be licensed, obviously, through American. I don't know if it's American Medical Association, some medical association, and it's kind of like TRT clinics, A lot of TRT clinics can prescribe kind of crazier things than regular doctors because they're a private company, but they still have to comply, obviously. But they go on the what is acceptable, what's the highest dose I can give someone, basically, or what's the you get what I'm saying. Instead of the least effective dose, they're the most the least dose to be effective. Instead of that, just get the highest dose that I can possibly give because I'll get more money. Yeah, it's that type of thing. Anyways, I wanted to.
Oh, you have that quote up.
That quote, yeah. This is, people will probably find this interesting.
So
a lot of people probably aren't aware of.
This is Nixon, correct?
Yep, Richard Nixon during the time of the war on drugs, when he was mentioning that they scheduled psilocybin as a Schedule drug war quotes. You understand what I am saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war on black, but we knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities.
That's just like
That's terrible.
Jesus.
How is that a hidden thing? Like, because I've never heard that before, and I think that is completely absurd that any president would even think to say that.
Even if it's like true, like why would you say that publicly? Like what you're thinking there?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm glad he said it though, because I mean, I don't know. It's terrible. I'm not glad that that's the case, but I'm glad he's honest about it. I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of weird though. Like if you're doing something that's frowned upon, like in society, why would you tell? I mean, that's kind of.
And this was the initiator of the war on drugs. So if the man who initiated it directly said this, I'm curious to hear other people's opinions on the current war on drugs now.
Can you explain what the war on drugs is? Like I know, like I've heard it and stuff. Like what is it like?
Well, he basically described it perfectly. It's the war on drugs isn't obviously the government has a war on drugs due to money reasons. I'm sure several factors.
It's just like the government. Is it the government resistance on drug use? Is that what it's
from my knowledge?
Okay,
from my knowledge.
Because I just keep on hearing it, but like I don't really fully understand the meaning of it. But
it's basically just complete control and regulation for the higher ups benefit.
Yeah, it's also crazy to think about if like they decriminalize drugs, of how much violence and stuff like gang violence stuff like that would be eliminated, because I feel like that would definitely be a big factor.
Yeah, totally.
Is that, have you heard anything about that in Oregon maybe?
I haven't looked into that too much, honestly. I should, because like I'm kind of passionate about this type of stuff, but I'm not sure if it's 100% proven or not. But that's another factor related to that too, is like overdoses. Like there
wouldn't be anything tainted also if it's more government regulated.
If it was government regulated and legal.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. That's another factor. Like I feel like that's because there's a lot of, I heard like in like I Falls, I remember someone was talking about it.
That was me.
About how there's been like insane reports of fentanyl laced marijuana.
Yeah,
and Falls, and like how the people, like, I think one kid died actually.
Yeah, and this is marijuana. Like this is a drug that is thought to be, for the most part, considered by most of society as benign, like not harmful, and younger generations, and younger kids are experimenting with this. Yeah. So like that could have been one of you guys. Like
it's crazy.
Dying from smoking fentanyl. When you thought it was marijuana, just pure marijuana, like that's just crazy. And that stuff would not happen
if it was government regulated.
If it was government regulated, because my opinion on how that happened is these drug dealers, because we all know fentanyl is crazy addictive, right?
It's an opioid.
Yeah. It's an opioid. Any opioid is. So if these drug dealers put fentanyl in their marijuana strains, they sell it. People are gonna be like, "Wow, this is amazing." Not only that, not only are they gonna think it's amazing, they're also gonna become physically dependent. Not just psychologically. So if you have physical dependency, you're going to be going back to the same dealer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Making more money, and that stuff wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Because I always wondered why they would do lace stuff like that, because you would think fentanyl would be more expensive than weed, you know?
Yeah.
I've always wondered that, but that makes sense.
From my understanding, you need a very small amount of fentanyl to overdose.
Yeah.
Very small.
Yep. That's very true. It's like it's way more powerful than like morphine and stuff, and we're all aware of the analgesic effects of morphine. They give it to soldiers when they get like blown up and stuff. It's very powerful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like you said, it's I don't remember the exact concentration higher, but you need a very small amount to get the same effect as morphine.
Yeah. I've seen like a picture of it like compared to like a penny, and it was like literally so small, like the size of like the lettering on a penny, like just that much is like the overdose amount. Like that's crazy.
But this is the next thing I was gonna say is like there is good in government regulation, obviously, to some extent. Like we've kind of been bashing it, and rightfully so. It kind of deserves that in some sense. But like, for example, they regulated fentanyl. So basically every prescription has like a tracking, or not I don't remember exactly how it is, but they're tracking every prescription of fentanyl going out. So they can almost pinpoint, I'm not sure exactly how, but I'll have to look more into it, but they can track where the fentanyl sources are like kind of going. So that's
That's a good step.
Yeah, that is a very good step.
yeah. So there is good aspects of the regulation as well, and in certain cases, certain pharmaceuticals and drugs can be very bad for the populations. But I think instead of being ignorant and just acknowledging their detrimental effects, we should also appreciate more of their positive effects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, I wanted to get into like pre-workout
Okay.
because I feel there's a lot of controversy around pre-workout.
Yeah.
And obviously it's up to you if you take it, like every other substance, but from the research I've done, pre-workout is banned by the Minnesota State High School League, and even what's the organization called that controls
WADA or USADA?
WADA, I believe.
WADA, yeah.
It's prohibited on like event days
Yeah.
because it's such a performance enhancer, but I want to get into that because I'm not sure how actually true that is.
No,
Yeah.
that's 100% true. I've heard that same thing.
And even creatine, sorry to cut you off, but I know that, I think I've read that and you've told me that.
That's also banned by the Minnesota State High School League and also WADA, I believe.
Yeah, continue what you're going to say
Yeah,
though.
I think it's banned by the Minnesota State High School League. I could be wrong. It could just be certain high schools. I know certain high school organizations for sure ban it, but it could be MSHSL or however you pronounce it.
Yeah, up to the sections or something like that.
But nevertheless, like regardless, it shouldn't be banned because like creatine's found in concentrations in red meats.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, why would you be banning if someone eats too much steak? Are they banned from the contest? Like, just think of how silly that sounds. And even pre-workouts, they're all natural ingredients. You're not, unless you get like a SARM or something in them, but that wouldn't be considered a pre-workout because that's now considered a research chemical.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's silly. Like, pre-workouts are mainly consisted of vitamins,
Stimulants.
minerals, and stimulants that are legal, like caffeine. You're not gonna frown upon someone for drinking a cup of coffee. Are you banned from a competition because you drink a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
Or amino acids is a big one, like L-citrulline, for example. Like it's been proven to enhance blood flow. Well, that's amino acid found in various things we eat. Can you no longer eat those foods if you play sports? Like, come on.
That's just
Yeah.
so good.
Is citrulline the big thing in watermelon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what chemical or what substance do you think is the reason for that ban?
Well, back before they started regulating a lot of things, they did sell like certain pro hormones and stuff at GNC, and you're not aware of what pro hormones are. It's basically it was considered a supplement that once converted once taken in the body, it converts into basically like an anabolic steroid in the body. Not basically, it does. It converts into steroids in the body. So with that, taking that into consideration, maybe that changed some of their viewpoints. Like, hey, like these things aren't safe, but you'd think they'd be aware of these things that those are no longer available at your local GNC. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe that has a factor in it.
They just like the scare factor of it, where they're like,
Yeah, maybe.
there's just a lot of stuff like that I just can't see
Yeah.
there being a reason for it being banned. But like, cause there's, like you said, caffeine, L-citrulline, then there's beta-alanine, and what does that do again?
Beta-alanine is an
It's
amino
like-
acid as well.
It's a vasodilator.
It's not a vasodilator.
I thought it's for blood flow.
That's what L-citrulline is, correct?
Yeah, that's what L-citrulline is. I'm not 100% sure what beta-alanine does, like 100%, but I do know that it helps more with aerobic metabolism. So like anaerobic would be like your heavy weightlifting, like your like squats, your deadlifts, explosive things, where aerobic would be different in that you'd be like running long distance and stuff like that. It has more it increases your time to fatigue for
Yeah.
Okay.
aerobic.
But another amino acid, correct?
Yes.
So, yeah, again, there's just naturally occurring things because amino acids are the building blocks for protein.
Yeah.
So essentially, every protein has 22 amino acids, right? 20.
You might be right. I don't.
24,
Yeah.
something like this.
20.
Something
It's in the 20s. It's in the low 20s. But it's naturally occurring in protein, and obviously, protein's in a
Various
ton of
food,
food, like lots of it, and everyone knows that. That's common knowledge. So why would a pre-workout be banned by these contests?
Yeah, you're just changing your source. Really, it doesn't really. I don't see the reason
Doesn't
for
make any
that.
sense at all.
Because instead of getting it, like you said, like your amino acids from the pre-workout, you're getting it from a steak, or you're getting your caffeine from a cup of coffee. And instead of getting them from separate sources, like you said, you just
Yeah.
combine it into one.
Yeah.
And
It makes no sense. It really doesn't.
No.
I think it's just more of like a stigma thing. Like they just like they see this thing and they're just like, all right, this is not good. You know, like not very much thought into it. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I could, but like I can't draw any other conclusion because, like you said, it's in various natural foods. So I don't know why it would be banned.
Yeah.
It could also be that they're thinking that simple pre-workouts and protein powders or creatines, any supplement of that nature, could potentially lead to different exploration in the performance enhancing category. You know what I mean? It could be related to that as well.
Which maybe it will, but then again, like for steroids, people are gonna take it if they want to take it. So banning pre-workout or like banning it, people are gonna take it if they want to take it.
Yeah, and there's not a clear line. Like, okay, if you ban pre-workouts and natural supplements, what's stopping them? like, why wouldn't you? Can you no longer eat a certain concentration of meat? Like, where's the line? There's no clear line. There's never going to be. And supplements, their definition basically is, their definition is like you're getting a certain amount of a micronutrient, vitamin, or mineral in a sufficient quantity that you could not otherwise obtain through your diet. That's why hence it's called supplementation. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, people take iron supplements for iron deficiency, and
Yeah, Dylan does.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, there should never be a case in where a supplement is banned.
Yeah.
Because if you're getting these things in your daily life through diet, why would it be? It doesn't make any sense.
you're just getting it in lower concentrations more often instead of a high concentration in one.
Yeah.
And it's not like these companies are suggesting to take for individuals to take way over the recommended daily limit. That's not the case because because they would be losing all their money. They want the least effective dose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Two, they have fillers and stuff like that also to make money, and so the concentration of these things are going down. And these companies are well aware of the research of developing products. They know what works, what doses work, and what don't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. In regards, I remember you talking about enhancement drugs. What are SARMs? I know what SARMs are, but I'm not sure if you guys know. Can you explain like what SARMs are? Like first of all, like the acronym.
Okay.
So I've seen a lot on like TikTok and a lot of younger generations using it now. It's kind of scary, honestly, because I mean I know what they are, but can you explain what that is?
Yeah. So first and foremost, like SARMs, they're very powerful. They act in the same mechanism as steroids for the most part, and I do not condone their use whatsoever for people that aren't fully developed in your teenage years. And I'll explain why in a little bit. But they stand for selective androgen receptor modulators. So steroids, they act on your androgen receptors. Those are your receptors that make you more manly. Those are the receptors that increase protein synthesis in males and females.
Just for building muscle, that's a protein.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a protein.
Yep. So that's basically the main mechanism, and because that's considered anabolic, and then catabolic would be breaking down muscle, breaking down fat, etc. So basically, steroids and SARMs, what they both do is they increase anabolism via protein synthesis and decrease catabolism via like cortisol suppression and stuff like that. So basically, SARMs act on your androgen receptors. But if you look at the acronym, like you said, they're selective androgen receptor modulators. Steroids, they act on all your androgen receptors. Well, SARMs are thought, because there's androgen receptors in your prostate, your liver, all types of tissues in your body.
And then majority of them are in your shoulders, correct? I heard there's a lot. I mean, there's a large amount.
I wouldn't say majority, but there's a high. Your shoulders have a high density of androgens.
Yeah, because I've also noticed like going into like I've watched people say if they're natural or not. If they notice that if people have like larger shoulders, I mean that's sort of a telltale sign.
100%. Yeah.
Oh wait. Also, sorry to cut you off, but do you think that I mean, at least for me, when I see a physique that has larger shoulders or like broader shoulders, I see that as a more aesthetically pleasing physique, into the contrary of like narrow shoulders. And do you think, I feel like females find that more aesthetically pleasing and more attractive. Do you think that has to do with the androgen androgen receptors?
Yeah, 100% has a 100% correlation.
Because it shows that you're more masculine, you have more testosterone, correct?
Yeah. I'll get into that in a bit.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off about that. I just wanted to know.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because I have some things to say about that. But anyway, SARMs, they bind only to androgen receptors predominantly in muscle cells. So you're not going to be at risk or at as much of a risk compared to steroids developing things like prostate cancer, because that's one of the main effects, or even like liver cancer and stuff like that. That's what because steroids bind androgen receptors, and those increase protein synthesis in those cells, and you don't want protein synthesis increased in those cells because that leads to cancer. Obviously, it can.
To sum it up, SARMs are selective androgen receptor modulators, so they only choose muscle androgen receptors, where steroids would do all of them, like prostate, etc.
Yeah, they can be thought of as steroids solely for muscles, where steroids, the traditional steroids they increase protein synthesis and anabolism in basically all tissues. Okay. Which is scary because also your heart, your heart has androgen receptors.
And like Rich Piana, he had like 3 times the normal heart and he had a heart attack.
Most bodybuilders that die of heart attacks because they have increased heart, predominantly their left ventricle increases because that's the one that undergoes the most force and contraction. But
yeah, and I've like the why I brought up SARMs because I see a lot of people in the young generation using it. And I think it's because there's a lot of misconception that it's safer. I mean, it could be safer, like you said, because it doesn't act on the other androgen receptors. But there's not a lot of studies in SARMs. That's correct, because it's fairly new.
No, there can't be because there's no funding because it's a research chemical.
That's fair. But like, what do you think about the safety of that? Is it safer than steroids? And like, obviously, it's kind of like you don't really know. But
yeah, they are safe. From my knowledge and the research I've done there. And the studies that are available, it is like not 100%, but it is a lot safer than steroids because you're only the thought is you're only increasing protein synthesis in androgen receptors in the muscle, but via binding androgen receptors in the muscle.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot what you were asking before that.
The thing about how there's more androgen receptors in your shoulders and how
female would like find that attractive.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And how that has to do with female attraction.
Yeah. So that is honestly directly correlated to testosterone concentrations in male. That and okay. So the first thing that happens when you have a higher concentration of testosterone in the male, the very first physiological changes that happen like physically are your delts get more capped, more rounded. Because like you said, there's a high androgen receptor density in your delts. Another thing that happens is your jawline becomes more pronounced. You have a more pronounced jawline, which is directly correlated to female attraction.
Yeah, you can see that. Yeah.
And but this is the interesting thing. That's only for females that are ovulating. So.
Oh, I've heard about that actually.
Really, yeah.
So.
And ovulating is.
They're going through their normal menstrual cycles. Okay. They're not on birth control. If you're on birth control, you're not ovulating.
Yeah, that's what I was going to talk about. Yeah, I remember. I think I talked about that before with you about how
it's very interesting
how birth control is affecting the female preference for men.
Yep,
that is crazy.
Yeah, so and 100% is because the rates of birth control and contraceptive use are going skyrocketing up. Well, people are trying to hypothesize why. Well, I don't know if it's 100% true, but at least I have been trying to hypothesize why certain demographic groups of females are selecting more of your kind of like beta male men.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to like hate on anyone or anything. It's just very interesting to me. And I believe this is I don't not even I believe this. This basically has been proven is because they're no longer menstruating normally when they're on birth control, right?
Yeah.
Like oftentimes they don't even have their periods. They can miss them for several months and stuff like that. So that is because
You keep going.
I'll just go.
Yep. You can continue.
okay. Yeah, so when a female is pregnant, they're not ovulating normally. Similar to as if you were on contraceptives.
Yep.
What contraceptives do is basically trick your body into being pregnant, physiologically speaking.
Yeah.
That's not their mechanism, but that's the same physiological response that happens when you take contraceptives as if you were already pregnant. So if you're already pregnant, thinking of it as an evolutionary standpoint, why would you go out and seek an alpha male to like
Protect you
and stuff like that? You want someone who's comforting. You want someone who's there by your side and gonna do anything for you and caring. And that is complete opposite of your testosterone alpha males, because they have that have the cap delts and the jawline. So they find those females that are on contraceptives will theoretically, and it's basically been proven, will find higher testosterone individuals, higher men with higher testosterone, less attractive if they're on birth control, simply because they're having the same physiological response as if they're pregnant, and they don't want that in that situation. You need someone who's caring. You want someone who has higher levels of like oxytocin and like vasopressin, for example, because oxytocin is the hormone, the caring and loving hormone, the hormone that's responsible for forming one's bonds with their children. They want that mate. They're looking for someone who has high levels of oxytocin, and whenever testosterone is increased, oxytocin is decreased.
That's crazy. Wow. And I was gonna also talk about like you said, like beta males and whatnot, like people with lower testosterone and stuff like that, less aggressive. At least for me, I've noticed. Like I'll look at pictures of like the generations before us, and they at our age, and they seem way more masculine, like manly, like sharper jawline. They just look older. They look very like a traditional man. And like we're our generation, I feel like we look a lot younger. I noticed that. Do you think somewhat of this birth control has to do with that, or like why do you think that is? Because I've thought about this.
Birth control has to do with male like sex hormone production. Is that what you're saying? Like,
well, I'm just saying, like, what do you think what's going on there? Like, why are men, at least for me, in my
why are men more feminine in this day and age?
Yeah, what is happening?
I feel like that.
Well, yeah, because
like
I think
trends.
You're naturally, you look younger if you look more feminine, I would assume.
Yeah. Well, like, it's why are we just getting less masculine and more like say beta male? I don't.
Well, the first thing you have to realize is that you have a higher testosterone concentration in a male is going to lead to more rapid aging. Like for example, why do you think people bald when they take testosterone? Like it's the hormone that it's going to increase aging, because your body can only handle so much at one time, and you're basically just upregulating all of your body's metabolic processes, and that's a big stressor on your body. You're going to age a lot more rapid. So that could be a factor, because we are also well aware of, as by the research done, that testosterone levels are plummeting as well. Yeah, so that's directly correlated to the why we look younger.
Well, that's necessarily what I was asking. Why do you think that our testosterone levels are plummeting?
Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah, like why is that happening? Like why are we turning less masculine?
Well, there could be a multitude of factors, but they think that a lot of it has to do with some people assume it has to do with genetically modified things, like nitrates in meats and stuff like that, and genetically modified foods, and another big factor they think is contributing to that is a compound found in most plastics and other things that are used to package food, a compound called xenoestrogens, which is basically like a artificial estrogen. Like, I'm not sure what the prefix xeno means, but it's basically an artificial estrogen. And that's what that in and itself, if you're consuming those on a daily basis, getting them through plastics of foods, wrappers, and stuff like that, that's going to decrease your testosterone levels.
Yeah. Do you also think that some has to do with like society and our roles now? Because like it seems to be there's a lot more engineers, people behind the desk, people coding and stuff like that, where it used to be we had farmers like throwing hay bales or laborers. It seems like we're moving our roles, at least. Do you think that has to do with it, maybe?
It definitely could have a factor because exercise, for example, like I'm sure most people are aware of this increase in testosterone.
Yeah.
Like particularly like even working out legs has been shown to produce a higher testosterone concentrations more than working out any other muscle group in any working out individual. So yeah, if you're doing decreased exercise in totality, that could technically decrease testosterone over time. But with that being said, there's also mixed data on that because exercise has been shown to increase testosterone acutely versus chronically. So if you work out like at one night, let's say like maybe for the next couple of days, you'll have a sharp increase in testosterone. Not immediately. It'll actually decrease, but after that, and then it'll just normalize. But
yeah, put your mic a little closer, probably.
Oh.
So, me and you, if we ever like live together and stuff, like afterwards, we always talk about like how good we feel and like the endorphins and stuff like that. Could you like touch on that? Like what like endorphins like, and why does that like happen? Why are those like being released? Just because of like how good it feels to be doing that and like putting yourself through that?
Because I've noticed like even like after legs, or like we touched on this, it's like it's very euphoric. It's almost like, I mean, I don't have anything to like compare to, but it's like almost like it, I don't know, it's like it's different. You just feel very, I don't know, can you touch on that? Like,
I'm not too familiar on endorphins, but I'm pretty sure they act on your opioid receptors, which would make sense.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I could even look it up. But I think they act on your opioid receptors, which is, that in itself is not only rewarding, but it also has an analgesic effect, meaning that it numbs your pain, which makes sense because you're working out. So that it's
carrying muscle fibers, so you're gonna get a natural like painkiller almost.
Exactly.
That's what I always thought.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And also, if you're thinking about it as an evolutionary standpoint, I mean, if you're doing hard work and that hard work becomes rewarding afterwards, you're more likely to do it again to thrive and to thrive in the future and succeed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
How long has it been?
It's been an hour and 7 minutes.
Just about, yeah.
Maybe longer.
Want to continue or?
I'm fine. It's up to you guys.
Up to you.
Do you have anything else that you would like to discuss? Like anything? It doesn't have to be related to science or anything either. I have a lot of. We can even talk about Jordan Peterson's work or something. Or
oh yeah.
I remember you mentioned you wanted to do that.
We talked about
I liked
like
his
the intermission.
Probably one of his most popular discussions was with Kathy Newman.
Yeah.
And it's about the gender pay gap, and I don't know if you want to get into that, but
yeah. Did you talk about this in the first podcast?
I think I did a bit about how I might have. I think I did actually.
You might have, but from my knowledge, like Jordan Peterson's like synopsis of why the gender pay gap exists is by different traits among males and females. So disclaimer, like I'm not trying to say one sex is better than the other or be sexist. I'm just trying to make sense of why this is happening and if we're focusing on the right problem.
Yeah,
that's the most important thing, because it's not doing anyone any good if you're just focusing on the wrong problem and playing the blame game, pointing your finger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyways, so women, this has been proven, have higher levels of neuroticism and higher levels.
Can you describe what neuroticism is? Because I've heard Jordan Peterson use that term before, and I'm not very familiar with it.
It's your tendency to experience negative emotions.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Also, can we touch on? I have something else to touch on later. But.
Okay. Yeah. So women have higher levels of neuroticism. So they have a higher tendency to experience negative emotions, and they also have a higher level of agreeableness, and those are two of the big 5 traits of personality. And
yeah, take this or what?
No, you can keep going.
well, yeah. So I think you did touch on this in the first podcast, but if you have a higher level of agreeableness, for example, you're not gonna go fight for a job, a salary raise. You know what I mean? In your job, it's gonna be a lot less probable than someone who has a lower level of agreeableness, and men have a lower level of agreeableness than women.
Yeah, disagreeableness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So basically, women, like I remember Jordan Peterson touched on this, and he said that, like, if you like overall, we're actually pretty close, men and women. But if you take the extreme on both ends, it will always be the differences are at the extreme. Like, you find the most disagreeable men, and they're way more disagreeable than the most disagreeable women.
Exactly. That's a big.
That's the difference, mainly.
Exactly.
Like, overall, we're mainly the same, but at the extremes, that's where the differences is.
Yeah, because there's always going to be one who argues like, well, I know so and so, and that's completely opposite. Like, so and so is this female excels in her job because she is nothing but agreeable.
Exactly, and that's the other point Jordan Peterson brought up. He said like, well, there's also women that get more paid than men. Like, there's a different, like, you can't just say like, he'll bring up anecdotal evidence, say that, and like, it doesn't prove anything. You have to go
by the complete analysis of data.
Yeah.
Data doesn't care about your feelings. It never will. The data is true. And what data shows is by extremes, that females have higher levels of agreeableness, males have lower levels of agreeableness. By extremes. There's always going to be exceptions.
Remember, he also touched on about how gender and how men would choose higher paying jobs like STEM fields, stuff and so, and women would choose like nursing and teaching and stuff like that. And that also has to go into, I think I've talked to you about this, is how men are more interested in things where women are more interested in people per se.
Yeah.
And I feel like that definitely has to go into the job roles and the people, like traditional jobs, say like how men want to do STEM fields, stuff like that, because they're more interested in things, stuff like that, and women are interested in people, so they want to be in nursing or help kids or.
Yeah. And that is 100% true, and I don't like the fact that people try to debate this, because this is biologically proven and driven.
Yeah.
And why I say that is because women have always had lower levels of testosterone, because obviously that what makes them women. They have higher levels of estrogen, lower levels of testosterone. They also have higher levels of oxytocin, like I mentioned earlier, like the caring, loving, bond-forming hormone. Even just given that fact, why wouldn't you pursue a job that forms bonds and is responsible for caring of others? Yeah, women are going to do that.
And it's really frustrating when people talk about how like people shouldn't be in these roles and whatnot, and how traditional roles like shouldn't be a thing, which I agree to a certain extent. They shouldn't be enforced, but like they're there for a reason. It's because this is how it's been, and like you said, women have more oxytocin, so they want to pursue these careers that where they're caring for people, where they're not at a desk or working on like STEM field and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's almost like non-lethal natural selection if you think about it.
Yeah, and I think I maybe touched on this in the first podcast, but I talked about how I think partly due to the testosterone increase in like men, obviously, and how it goes back to hunter-gatherer days about how like women had babies, so they wouldn't go out to hunt, so therefore they wouldn't build up their upper body strength. They wouldn't have to produce more testosterone because they're not to go out there fighting tigers or whatnot. They wouldn't have to be able to do those things, and that's why women roles and men roles are the way they are now, is because of the way it's been.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way it is. You have to acknowledge that, and people don't. Yeah. People see the differences in men and women, and they think of it as they just take it at surface level. They don't really go into deep of why that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, by acknowledging that, like you said, it's important to acknowledge that perhaps some demographic of people could be aware of that fact and be like, okay, maybe I am a little bit too much agreeable. Yeah. I need to work on that if I want to be successful, because that's a big predictor in job success.
And that would be ideal, instead of people just essentially curling up into a ball and saying, oh, I'm getting paid less, or stuff like that. Just
exactly
taking initiative.
And I remember Jordan Peterson actually touched on that, because he's a therapist, he's a psychologist.
Yeah.
And he would do like agreeable training or disagreeable training with his clients, and there would be noticeable. They would get pay raises and stuff like that, where they tell them like they would do like he'd give them like assignments per se, or like things to do to help them get their disagreeableness up or whatnot, and they would be like insane and noticeable. They'll get pay raises in the job, they'll get higher positions, stuff like that, and they could help them a great deal.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. I feel like people don't realize.
Yeah, this is the last thing I want to talk about related. I will end my tangent on this subject. Is another factor, and that is men have, by and large, or like for the most part, have less empathy than women, generally speaking, and that's it might be kind of a radical statement to say, but but by this, what I'm about to say, it kind of shows that. Just higher testosterone, which men have so much more than females always will have, has been shown to decrease empathy. So if you have a higher level of testosterone, they actually did a study. Men who have higher levels of testosterone are less able to sense negative feelings and emotion in people through eye contact. So
That's crazy.
That's another big factor. So if you have less empathy, why would you be working in a career where you have to take care of people and be provide emotional support?
Yeah. It's just like it goes very.
You can go on and on.
And also, I was gonna say, Jordan Peterson touched on about how like Scandinavian countries, they would try to be more egalitarian, which is, what does that mean? Like where they're trying to eliminate the traditional gender job roles, where like men would be in STEM fields and women would be in nursing and teaching and whatnot. They tried to eliminate that and like structure it more, I think, and they thought it was gonna decrease like the traditional roles, like men being in STEM fields and whatnot. But it actually did the opposite, where men and women got even more in their traditional roles. And then
that's interesting.
And that's people like. It just shows you like that's just like our natural instinct. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
We can't beat nature.
Exactly.
No.
But yeah, that's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
For sure.
Anything else you guys wanted to talk about related to like psychology or even just life or?
For me, I don't know.
I'd say that was pretty good.
I'd agree.
I'm good with any of it.
All right.
Thank you for coming on.
It's been a pleasure, Russ.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, we obviously got this new setup, and I like it a lot. Obviously, it's not like as easy because like obviously like if you talk in like the wrong spot of like the mic or whatever, you can't hear as well. Like there's a lot of things that go into it, but I feel like just like quality wise, it's a lot better.
Big step.
Sure.
Big step.
Big step. Yeah. Now we kind of just need better places to like do this. I mean, this place like worked out perfectly. Like no one will interrupt us. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also got a new set, as you can tell, but
Yeah.
So we're still experimenting with that part of it, but
all right. Is that it?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Talk, Russ.
thank you.